Welcome to the LSU Sports Insider Podcast, brought to you by the journalists at The Advocate, NOLA.com, and the Times-Picayune. I'm Perryn Keys. I'm the executive sports editor, joined today by Wilson Alexander, our lead LSU football beat reporter, and by Edward Scott Rabalais, our venerable longtime columnist.
He doesn't read your whole name out.
Have you ever had Edward as your byline?
Oh, no. It's just legal documents and that sort of thing.
You'd be like E.S. Rabelais, like...
Yeah, well, that would be good, like A.E. Houseman. yeah, that would... Or E.E. Cummings.
We're 30 seconds into the show and we're off the rails already. these two gentlemen, as well as myself, we will sit here and discuss LSU's 42-30 victory over Texas A&M in the regular season finale, and obviously... Jayden Daniels' pursuit of the Heisman Trophy and Malik Nabers' pursuit of the Biletnikoff Award, among many other things. We will also get into the LSU season in general and what's to come. So that's what we will do, and we are here for it. Gentlemen, welcome in.
Hey, good to be with y'all today. Got my Christmas tree up yesterday.
Me too.
Hey,
that's
priorities. I wait
exactly
until after Thanksgiving. I do not do anything Christmas until after Thanksgiving.
No, but we usually wait until like December 18th. So I'm very proud of my family to get the tree up.
I don't stand for that. We'll discuss when the right time is to put the tree up, and also I know you and Elise had a discussion about Christmas playlists as well, Wilson.
Oh gosh,
we got to get into that as well. But first things first, I'm quite certain that whoever's tuning in is tuning in to discuss LSU football more than anything else. So we will get into that. But a bit of business first, as always. We are here every Monday and Thursday on our YouTube channels, specifically the LSU Tigers at NOLA.com channel. So if you subscribe there, you'll never miss anything, whether you're live or whether you catch up with us later on either that day or during the week. But every Monday and Thursday on our social channels, on the YouTube channel LSU Tigers at NOLA.com. Please subscribe to The Advocate. You do that at theadvocate.com/subscribe. And by all means, get a hold of our newsletter, our LSU newsletter. To do that, you go to theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter. We are here also on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or wherever the finer podcasts are found. We are brought to you today and every day by Champion Wealth Strategies. Champion Wealth Strategies is a national financial services firm specializing in the capital markets, securities, insurance, 401ks, and college and retirement planning. Our broker-dealer is LPL, financial member FINRA, SIPC. As you know, investments are not FDIC insured, may lose value, and have no bank guarantee. To learn more, contact Champion Wealth Strategies. Go to championwealthstrategies.com. Go to Champion Wealth Strategies and plan like a champion today. Also, one other thing to mention, this is obviously a holiday season, gift-giving season. And so with that in mind, go to the Advocate store and pick up some championship posters. There are plenty of them because LSU just keeps winning championships. So that's good news, and that's good news that you want to share, and good news that you want to frame and post up on a wall or give to a friend or a loved one. If you do that, you can go to store.theadvocate.com. That's store.theadvocate.com. And if you enter the coupon code Insider, you get 15% off your purchase. That's store.theadvocate.com. So, gentlemen, here we are. LSU 42, Texas A&M 30. Jayden Daniels, of course, the story of the day, the story of the year, really, for that matter. 235 yards passing after a slow start, 120 yards rushing after a slow start, 4 touchdowns in all. And he leads them to a victory and a 9-3 overall record to close out the regular season, 6-2 in SEC play. That's in year 2 under Brian Kelly. And before we get into the Heisman talk and Malik Nabers' pursuit of the Biletnikoff Award and everything like that, I just want to sort of take a zoom out view of LSU's season and just put it to you guys. Rab, I'll start with you. Is this season a success or a disappointment, or somewhere in between on a, say, 0 to 10 scale?
I really want to be definitive and say it's a success or disappointment. But obviously, the offense was a raving success. And the fact that Jayden Daniels is definitely, at this point, going to be in New York as one of the top 4 Heisman vote getters, a Heisman finalist, it's a huge success. But the defense was so bad. I mean, and look, Brian Kelly's goal is to win championships, and he knows as well as as we all know, that you can't play defense like this and be a championship contender or even a team that's going to consistently be in the expanded college football playoff starting next year. So I would say it was a qualified success because they did win 9 games. They did finish 6-2 in the SEC for the second straight year. Last year that won it. This year that gets you second place. But there are definite successes, but there's some big weights anchoring down the program as well from the kind of success that he was hired here to have.
Wilson?
A disappointment, not so much to the degree of like, oh, the sky is falling and everything's a disaster. But when I think I say that because when people look back on this season 5-10 years from now, the way that, you talk about, I don't know, the 2011 championship game and all those sorts of things, there's always going to be this twinge of what if, what if the defense had just been a little bit better? You'd probably at least beat Ole Miss if you're able to make one stop in that game.
Right.
And you or maybe in that case 10-2 and going to a New Year's Six bowl game, in which case I would say the season would be a success because of the big picture look of this program. Just a few years ago being 11-12 over 2 seasons, the roster and the state that it was, to then potentially have, back a 10-win season, then a 10-win regular season, and an SEC championship appearance in 2 years. That would very much be a success. But because of that, always that factor of just what if the defense was a little bit better, what would this team have been able to accomplish? I think it is a little bit of a disappointment because there's always going to be that twinge of regret. And so I can't say it's a success if that's going to be sort of the lasting feeling of a season.
Does it feel like there was progress between year 1 and year 2 under Brian Kelly, or is it static? Is it, is the program on better footing? Is it not on better footing? Where do you sort of stand on that?
Well, you look at the 3 phases of the game, you'd have to say it was 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Mm-hmm. 1 big step back with the defense, but obviously the offense reached levels that I didn't think anyone could have envisioned going into this season. That they'd be this good, and the Jayden Daniels would be this good, and the receivers would be this good, and how would Logan Diggs be? He was a great addition. And special teams. Remember, if we were doing this a year ago, we've been talking about the giant crater that was LSU special teams all year, and that has improved. It wasn't always great, but I give them a good solid B+, overall. But then of course the defense has been, one of the worst defenses in the country. I mean, it's not just hyperbole. It's one of the worst defenses in the country, and that's not. As everybody keeps talking about the LSU standard, that's the bedrock of the LSU program. You can talk about Billy Cannon and Joe Burrow and now Jayden Daniels and Josh Reed and Jamar Chase and all these great offensive players, Charles Alexander. But the identity of this program is its defense. The Chinese Bandits back in 1958 and Tyrann Mathieu and DBU and Patrick Peterson and Tommy Casanova and Glenn Dorsey and players like that.
All the great players in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, this was, that's what has been like a lot of the core identity of this program is great defense over the years, and that's lost right now, and they've got to get it back, or they're not going to be the kind of program that they want to be.
Wilson, does it feel like progress between year 1 and year 2?
I really like the way Rab said, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, because you look at it in some ways, yes, progress. Not only progress in sort of just what we saw this season offensively and on special teams, but also the roster as a whole is in spots getting better. I say that and I start thinking about what the secondary looks like, and that's a mess. And it's going to probably take 1 or 2 years, or at least some really big hits in the transfer portal in order to get that back to where it needs to be. So yes, in some ways, no in others, and that's kind of a cop-out answer, but that's what I feel is that it's. I just like the way Rab said that with 2 steps forward, 1 step back, because they did take strides in some ways. I mean, this offense is historically fantastic, probably the second best in LSU history. Still say second because statistically it matches up quite well to the 2019 offense.
They played tougher competition.
That very much so, I think. But again, just defensively, such a hindrance all year. So they've got a ways to go still as a program, but I do think they are in a much better situation than they were January 2022 at the Texas Bowl.
And they got to be better on defense because it would be unfair to expect next year's offense to be quite as good. Jayden's going to be gone. Some other key offensive players might be gone, and the defense has to. Again, they probably don't have to be SEC leading in total defense and scoring, but they've got to be better. They kind of got to meet the offense in the middle for them to be a better team. If they can, they could be a playoff contender. But if they can't, then they won't be.
You bring up that in many respects there is discernible progress between year one and year two. But I wonder, and I'll put this is sort of the next question, the next topic du jour, do those signs of progress actually carry over from year two to year three? The reason I bring that up, of course, the topic du jour, one of the topics du jour, aside from Jayden Daniels' pursuit of the Heisman, is coaching staff changes and whether there will be any and whether there should be any and things of that nature, but also roster, losses on the roster, departures, things of that nature. We'll get to roster in a hot minute. But Wilson, where do you suppose, as we sit here on Monday morning, where do you suppose the changes, if there are going to be any changes to the coaching staff, will there be any? Should there be any? Things of that nature.
There will be changes. That we can say extremely confidently. There will be changes on the defensive side. What is unclear at the moment, and I have to be sort of careful as I go through all this, to not report something that will later be like incorrect but might be true now and all that sort of stuff. This time of year, there's lots of sifting through facts and fiction. So what's unclear is who will be back and what positions on that defensive staff will be changed. There are some indications and some buzz right now that LSU plans to keep Matt House. That could be a possibility. I think a lot of people, based on what LSU has done defensively this year, just sort of assumed, they're going to be parting ways with him as defensive coordinator. That might not be the case. I think that's, this isn't maybe all done yet. I don't know if those conversations between Brian Kelly and Matt House have happened yet, but it would not surprise me if Matt House was back as defensive coordinator. Then again, at this point of the year, like this stuff can move around and shift. And so I think that is I'll just say I think it's a possibility. I don't think it's a done deal that he's gone, but it might not yet be a done deal that he's back. So I think that's kind of where all that's at right now.
Rab, you're our columnist. You're paid to have opinions. Matt House, you can just mention the name Matt House in front of a group of LSU fans, say 10 to 20 people, and I'm going to guess that maybe 15 to 17 to 18 of those 20 people would not necessarily be real fired up about hearing that Matt House would come back if he were to come back. My question to you is, should he come back? Has he earned the right to come back? How much of this, the LSU's deficiencies on defense, are they the byproduct of bad scheme underneath Matt House? Has he earned the right to come back because the personnel maybe wasn't there as it should be? Just sort of, where do you stand on whether he should be back, whether they should do something different, whether they should keep him, anything of that nature?
I can see. Look, if you're Brian Kelly and you think that the defensive philosophy overall is a positive one, then you can say yes, you come back. And obviously Brian Kelly, it's his job too, and is his status as LSU's coach as well. And it's important to him that the defense succeed. And so if he thinks Matt House is the guy to come back, I think you have to say, okay, then where do you get better? You probably get better. So there's some position coaches, and he said after the game, he said, I evaluate everyone. I evaluate myself, and I evaluate the staff, the support staff, everybody, and that tells me that that there's some changes going to be made. And look, they also is worth remembering they got dealt kind of a bad hand. They had to juggle the staff after Jimmy Lindsey went out in August with a health issue. Does he come back? I mean, we don't know. You had to move some people around. John Jancic didn't think he'd be coaching the defensive line when they started the season.
Right.
And Bob Diaco was an analyst, and he got moved into. He was got moved into different roles, and it was kind of a mess from the beginning. And they did miss some key players over the course of the year. Greg Brooks wouldn't have been an All-American, but he certainly would have been a stabilizing force in the secondary if he could have played all year. And then you lose other players too. So there's a lot of mitigating factors here. But I think you have to make some changes. You can't just stand pat completely, and you have to say, maybe Brian and Matt have a come to Jesus meeting, as I've heard may have taken place after one game earlier this year, and say, why do we do this? Why do we do that? And say that we're going to do some different things. Like, do we know why? Was it Matt House's idea to move Harold Perkins inside to start the season? It seemed like it was more of this is what Harold Perkins wanted to do, for his future as a player. So
I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know exactly, but those are the
Yeah.
kind of things that look like a bad move on Matt House's part, and maybe we don't. No one really knows the entire picture. So I hate to equivocate so much, but I will say that, I would say if Brian Kelly, with 32 years experience, knowing that it's his $9 million job on the line as well, decides to stick with him, then you could say this is a reasonable decision to make, qualified with the fact that they have to make some staff changes and have to get better personnel-wise for sure. And that includes getting better recruiters, not just guys coaching the X's and O's.
Especially, you mentioned like the recruiting piece, because if Matt House is retained, then it's a show that Brian Kelly believes in what he does philosophically and schematically, but that he thinks that the personnel probably needs to get better. And there's certainly things that Matt House needs to do better. I mean, like you mentioned Harold Perkins, the fact that in that Texas A&M game, it took so long to use him as a spy, and then once they did use him as a spy on third down, like they were just
Made a big
they were
difference.
finally making stops. Like same thing in the Alabama game, never making the call that was available. Like those sorts of things need to change, whether that is a co-thing with Brian Kelly and Matt House, or if it's simply on somebody else. Like that, however, those sorts of in-game things need to happen. And regardless of who's back, and you mentioned also like, okay, it would also be a show that Kelly thinks that the personnel, if Matt House has better personnel, then maybe what he does can be better. Because we saw Matt House with better personnel be a solid defensive coordinator last year. There started being buzz like, oh, is somebody going to try to poach him from LSU? That kind of thing. And people were very concerned about that. Yeah. Like with better personnel, the defense was better. It still had to make a lot of improvements coming into this season off of last year, particularly on third down, where it's been atrocious all season. But that could be maybe what's, if he's retained, I think that's what it would say, is that Brian Kelly believes in what he does schematically and thinks that if he has better personnel, that the defense will be better. But like you said, Perryn, then they need to go and recruit and get better players. It would also tell me that Brian Kelly is looking for some continuity and stability. And this line sticks out to me from, I asked him post-game Saturday, basically, what are you going to consider and how are you going to go about, any staff changes? And he gave an answer, like you said, about making all the evaluations and all those things. And then he paused and he said, the ultimate goal here is to win championships, but I also know the development of this program is still ongoing. That's an important piece in this evaluation process as well. And now this is just reading tea leaves, but that sounds a little bit like somebody who wants to have some level of continuity. Maybe not, like you said, completely all across the board. Like there are staff changes coming to some degree, but I'll be maybe surprised at this point if it's just a complete and total taking out everybody, bringing in a completely new group of people this early in where they're at as a program.
So, Rab, you're not sitting in Brian Kelly's chair right now, but let's just pretend that chair is Brian Kelly's chair, and you decide to keep Matt House. If that is what he decides to do, how do you sell it to the fan base?
Probably, I could see him say something along the lines of what Wilson said. The stability. We've had some headwinds this year that were beyond Matt's control, and with illnesses and injuries and discipline and stuff like that. We've been talking about Angel Reese a lot. We kind of stopped talking about Deuce Chestnut and Denver Harris. We're just kind of saying, well, they're not playing and they're not going to be back. So the two guys who could have contributed. Just as an example. So I think you saw that there was a lot of things that the program faced, and it's not, while the assumption is that LSU should be excellent on defense and have the best players, they haven't. I mean, we go back to the end of the Ed Orgeron tenure where they really got depleted, and Brian said going into the season they still weren't where they wanted to be roster-wise, and he's been pointing towards next year and stuff like that. So, okay, well, next year it better be better. There better be improvement next year, and I think Kelly knows that as well as anyone.
So year one to year two, you guys discussed that in many respects there are signs of progress, but I will add a little sub-layer to that, which is even if there was progress, and I think you can certainly say that, this LSU football team, for all its faults and all its successes, is losing quite a bit in terms of personnel. Obviously, you're going to have an enormous loss with Jayden Daniels heading off to the NFL. That's not the only spot, though. Obviously, defensive interior. The secondary, for all its faults, is not only in need of an upgrade, but also losing personnel. Several key pieces of the secondary, linebacker, even the receiver position. I'll just put this to you, Wilson. Where does LSU stand in recruiting, and what major? We know that Brian Kelly did not want to sort of quick fix this thing via transfer portal over and over and over again. But by the same token, they're losing a lot of players, a lot of key players, and a lot of key positions that you may not necessarily feel confident in bringing an 18-year-old in to fix. Where do they start? What's the most important thing to take care of here as we go down the road in recruiting?
Defensive line has got to be priority one. LSU does not have a whole lot of defensive linemen. They've got one true interior defensive lineman, I believe, committed in the 2024 class that's about to sign. They need defensive tackles. They need size up front. You heard Brian Kelly say it in a press conference a couple weeks ago that they were going to move aggressively, were his words, on defensive linemen, both in the transfer portal and in recruiting. There's some JUCO targets that they have on their board. Maybe they go after some folks in the portal, depending on who enters. You also have to re-recruit who you have.
Right.
Get Mason Smith back. He did not have a fantastic season, but this is a guy with potential who, if you can develop him with a full offseason that he's healthy, because remember, he was coming off an ACL last year, and then in preseason camp had the ankle injury, and so really wasn't even fully healthy until a month into the season maybe, then maybe you can actually bring all of that talent out of him. So you got to get him back. And he's not like a super high draft prospect right now. So they have a very strong argument in recruiting him back, this next season. But also, someone like Jacobian Guillory, who has another year of eligibility because of the COVID year. He's a redshirt junior technically. Get him back. He's not like a super high NFL draft prospect, and while he might not be a total game changer, that's someone with a lot of experience, who we saw make a few plays on Saturday. Jordan Jefferson is gone. He doesn't have any eligibility left. Mekhi Wingo could come back, but is considered one of the top 10 defensive tackle prospects in this upcoming draft. I think so there's a good chance that he would go. But you got to get guys in the middle of that defensive line and build out from there. Braden Swinson was a solid edge rusher this year, so that's somebody who you can probably continue to develop and build on. And you also have a lot of really young edge rusher talent, so you probably don't need to go after somebody there. Obiagofu, he's a fifth-year senior, he'll be gone. But also at linebacker, re-recruit Greg Penn. Greg Penn maybe not be...
That's a big one to come back to me.
Yeah, he might not be Devin White, but he's played a lot of football. Yeah. And when you're talking about folks on this defense who you want to probably see back out there next year, Greg Penn would be someone. He's been a solid player over the last couple of years.
He knows what he's doing out there,
that too. Yeah, and then you probably put Weeks next to him. Omar Spates was a fifth-year guy. He'll be gone. And then as you continue to build out, make sure nobody tries to come and poach Harold Perkins. That's a huge thing as well. With the NIL and transfer portal these days, there will certainly be people who try to come and take Harold Perkins, so don't let anything like that happen. And then in the secondary, it's going to be fascinating to see what LSU does, because you've got some young guys in like Javian Toviano and Ashton Stamps who have played okay here down the stretch. Do you go, but you probably need some more veteran corners again in the portal, like you said, even though, maybe Jake, or maybe they don't, because J.K. Johnson, all these guys who they got last year, they could be coming back in terms of eligibility. There's still probably decisions to be made, but J.K. Johnson was out all season, but that's not an injury that should keep him out until next year.
Do you think he's going to be a starter?
I don't know. He got injured way too early in the preseason to really see. He was a second string guy most of the spring, but there could have been so many things that happened. We saw how many guys got chances at corner this year, so it's hard to say. But that's going to be fascinating, and it's safety as well, because do you go after some transfer guys to get some experience back in there? Because Andre Sam was a seventh-year player. He's gone. Major Burns could, I think, technically come back next season, but will he or will he not? And so if he doesn't, then you're left with a lot of young guys. And you're bringing in some guys like Deshaun McBride, who are really good, highly rated recruits. But again, like you're saying, you probably don't want to throw out a true freshman there unless you have to. So you go after some experience in the transfer portal. That would be kind of be like the whole, I guess, broad overview. But my to-do list would be start up front on the defensive line, retain who you have, who is draft eligible, and make sure none of them transfer, none of your studs in particular transfer, and then formulate a plan in the secondary.
One other thing to bring up, and of course we're going to have a whole off season to get to this, but sort of locate, you sort of take for granted just how great LSU's been at the wideout position for years and years and years now. They're going to lose Malik Nabers. They're going to lose Brian Thomas. And now all of a sudden, well, wait a minute. Ooh, are you sure you have enough of that position? Just sort of reset that whole position, if you would.
Certainly. And that's another area where like re-recruiting is going to be important, because if they can get like Kyron Lacey back as a senior, I don't ever want to say like, oh, he's going to go and he's going to have an 1,000-yard season. But he's been solid this year in some spots.
And he's a guy.
Yeah, who they trusted this year and who could come back as a senior with some experience and be a piece of the offense. Because other than that, you're looking at Chris Hilton, who didn't play a lot this year, Aaron Anderson, who didn't play a lot this year.
Shelton Sampson.
What's that?
Shelton Sampson.
Shelton Sampson, absolutely. A whole group of freshmen led, I think, by Shelton, who did not play much this year because of Malik Nabers and Brian Thomas and Kyron Lacey. But also maybe go out and get... They've got some other receivers coming in this class too. Like LSU's going to have receivers. The problem is that they're going to be so young and inexperienced. And we saw, it took Malik until... he was very good as a sophomore, but his massive leap, same thing with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, came as a junior. So you want to probably go and get someone in the portal if there's someone that they like, in order to maybe solidify that group with a little bit more experience, just in case those freshmen and those underclassmen aren't ready to play yet. But if they are, then get them out there.
This is the LSU Sports Insider, brought to you by the journalists at The Advocate, NOLA.com, and the Times-Picayune. You know where to find all our writers' great work. That's at theadvocate.com. Please subscribe. You can do that at theadvocate.com/subscribe. Get a hold of our LSU newsletter. That's a daily newsletter, but Rab handles that 3 times a week. So support your local journalist. Do that at theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter. Again, that's theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter. We are here every Monday and Thursday on all our social channels, specifically the YouTube channel, LSU Tigers at NOLA.com. Subscribe there if you can. You can find us live. And if you don't see us live, you can catch up with us later on in that same YouTube channel. So subscribe there. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever other finer podcasts are found. Also, get a hold of some gifts for the LSU fan in your life. It's gift giving season, holiday season. So go to store.theadvocate.com. Again, that's store.theadvocate.com. And if you do that, you can root around for some championship posters, LSU championship posters. These front pages from the Advocate Sports section, of course, are iconic, and they've been iconic, really, Rab, since 1991 when LSU won their first national championship in baseball, and of course, ever since then, with all the other different sports that the Tigers happen to win at. So please go there at store.theadvocate.com, and you can get 15% off your purchase with the coupon code INSIDER. One other thing, obviously, we are brought to you by Champion Wealth Strategies. To learn more, go to championwealthstrategies.com and plan like a champion today. So we've discussed quite a bit about LSU's future, but let's discuss LSU's present here for a moment. And one of the main things, of course, is Rab, before we get into Jayden Daniels Heisman campaign and Heisman talk and everything like that, we'll go to one of your favorite topics, your topic du jour, which is bowl projections, and I'll try to keep my eyes from rolling. But
that's because you're not going.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you're gonna tweet out pictures of you guys eating at Columbia restaurant, and I'll be sitting at home eating this Hormel snack tray at my desk. So I'm not real fired up about it. But
you can do better than that, Perryn.
I don't know. I got weird eating habits, so.
That's a topic
for another day. Rab, this is one of your favorite topics, so I'll just turn you loose. Where does it look like LSU is going to be headed for New Year's or Christmas or anywhere in between?
I was perusing the bowl projections, doing a little Google search for bowl projections last night, and came up with 12 of them. And 9 of them have LSU in the ReliaQuest Bowl. That's the artist formerly known as the Outback Bowl in Tampa on New Year's Day. 5 of them had LSU playing Notre Dame, 2 NC State, 1 Wisconsin, and 1 Maryland. I was like, what's Wisconsin and Maryland? 7 and 5 teams.
That's not quite as appealing a draw.
NC State's good. They got back in the top 25 this week.
They beat North Carolina.
Yeah, beat them good too.
Yes, they did. So they're 9-3. They've had a good season. I found a couple for the Citrus Bowl. Bill Bender from the Sporting News said LSU could go back to the Citrus Bowl to play Iowa. I think it would be fascinating, actually, for LSU to play Iowa if Jayden Daniels plays in the bowl game.
That would be the most fun,
that would be
matchup of styles.
Yes,
Iowa. It's not true that they hit the under every week this year.
I don't know about every week,
certainly most.
I'm sure you guys know that I think the over under went off
on all of them.
I'm sorry.
Didn't LSU hit the over on every single game?
Not every single one.
Okay,
I don't think the Georgia State over hit. I think they actually because Georgia State stopped scoring, and so. But I might be.
But Iowa Nebraska was 24.5, and they scored 23 combined.
Oh yeah. I mean, the under hits almost every single time.
So I just don't see LSU going back to the Citrus Bowl unless it was forced to them. No one else went. It'd be the 3rd trip to Orlando in a year.
Now I will say,
and one for the Gator Bowl, which is in Jacksonville.
You mentioned Citrus Bowl. I don't know if this really means anything because the bowl representatives are all around all the time. There was a Citrus Bowl representative in Brian Kelly's press conference on Saturday, so it's maybe not fully out of the realm of possibility that they're still looking at LSU. I guess
it's out of the realm, but it seems unlikely.
Can you sort of reset how the bowl selection process works?
Obviously, you have the college football playoff next Sunday. The 3rd. We'll have the college football playoff committee will release obviously the 4 teams in this year's playoff, and then they will release the teams in the other New Year's 6 bowl games. So the semifinals of the Sugar and the Rose, and then the championship game in Houston, and the other 4, of course, are the Cotton, the Fiesta, the Orange, and the Peach. So the CFP committee picks those 2. The Citrus Bowl is, by its agreement with the SEC, is allowed to pick its teams as well, and it's typically obviously SEC. Versus Big Ten, though it could be Notre Dame. I guess that's a possibility as well. And then the SEC places its teams in the rest of their bowl hierarchy, and they're all supposed to be even. But let's not kid ourselves.
In other words, after the Citrus Bowl, the SEC says, "Okay, this team's going here.
Yeah,
this team's
going to the ReliaQuest Bowl. This team's going to the Gator Bowl. This team's going to the Texas Bowl." And the SEC says they're all the same. But a trip to Tampa, it's not the same as a trip to Houston for the Texas Bowl. I mean, let's just be honest. The teams with better
that'd make me happy, not for nothing. Instead of eating at Columbia restaurant, you guys are eating at some, staying somewhere off the 610 loop or whatever, and just,
been there, done that.
not enjoying life.
A couple of years ago, that was.
Why do you want us to be sad, Perryn? Why do you not want us to enjoy?
Because
our
everybody's got to share in my misery if I got to sit here and eat a wholemeal snack tray.
It's a very journalistic approach to things, but the SEC will pick, and now could LSU? The question has been brought up to be: could LSU balk at playing Notre Dame in a bowl game? I guess they could. Specifically, Brian Kelly. Could he balk at playing Notre Dame in a bowl game? I guess they could, but Texas and Texas A&M have said they don't want to play in a non-New Year's 6 bowl game. Obviously, you're not going to turn down the Cotton Bowl, where they'd be able to play this year, and that's not the case this year. But so I guess that's always something that can be thrown into the mix, but. I don't think they're going to do that. I think to me that would be the best matchup that LSU could have if they don't make a New Year's 6 bowl, which seems almost
they're not.
Almost zero. The chances of as good as the chances of Alabama completing that 4th down 31 pass to beat Auburn the other night.
Because Alabama and obviously there's so many scenarios, but like Alabama, Missouri, and Ole Miss would all be ahead of LSU in the pecking order for a New Year's 6 game.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
Not for nothing, but Brian Kelly does not strike me as the kind of guy who would get all bent out of shape about having to play Notre Dame and hey, I don't want to face those guys.
I don't think he's his first choice, but I don't think he's gonna.
You asked him about it, didn't you?
Yeah, he said it would be good for the media. Yeah. So how would you feel about that? And he said it'd be good for the media, and which it would be. I mean, it would be the most entertaining matchup that LSU could have in a bowl this year if they played Notre Dame.
I personally would like to see, just as you said, I would like to see LSU versus Iowa, whether that's in Orlando or Tampa. I just think that would be fascinating if Jayden Daniels plays, which I guess before we get to his Heisman chances, I'll just put this to you, Wilson. Do you think we have seen Jayden Daniels play his last game in an LSU uniform?
Probably, but I mean, we'll see. There was a lot of sort of the way that things went on Saturday, talking about last game and stuff like that, and then I was like, you said last game, like, is this it, or do you still have a decision making? He's like, no, I still need to talk to my family and figure it all out and those sorts of things. But he doesn't have anything else that he has to prove.
Right.
I mean, neither does even Malik Nabers, which I guess we'll get into in a minute, except that Malik still really wants to break LSU's all-time receiving record.
22
Jayden
yards.
Jayden, he doesn't have anything else that he has to prove at this point, and all he would be doing is putting himself in harm's way and, with a potential injury that could damage his draft stock, which he has elevated so much this season. He gave LSU everything he had over 12 games. If he wants to opt out and not play, I would not fault him one bit.
I wonder, were he to win the Heisman, and this is just my thinking, would that make him be more willing to play in the bowl game?
That's interesting.
To say,
I had not thought about that. It's sort of a thank you as a last hurrah.
Yeah, thank you, last hurrah, kind of thing. And I don't know. It just seems like would seem odd for the Heisman Trophy winner not to play.
Let's just pretend it's a week and a half from now, and the Heisman vote has been settled one way or the other, whether he wins or not, and he says, "Hey guys, I've loved my time as an LSU Tiger, and it's been an exceptional experience, and so on and so forth. But I think it's best for me to get ready for the draft and prepare for the draft, and not put myself in harm's way." It feels to me like 85 to 90% of the LSU fan base is, certainly knowledgeable and willing to accept and understand that, no, we get it. We understand, hey, this guy gave us a whole boatload of memories, and he gave us, just as you said, Wilson, everything that he could possibly have given us, and, no harm, no foul, no hard feelings. We wish you the best, and so on. Does that am I crazy for saying something like that?
No, I would like to think that people would be understanding of that. I think there's still sort of maybe sometimes this feeling of, oh, well, he plays for my school, so he needs to get out there and play. But that's changed, so much over the last few years as players have opted out. I think folks are more understanding of that than they used to be.
And some people would want to see Garrett Nussmeier, like, hey, Jayden's done all this, and the bowl doesn't mean that much. They're trying to win 10 games, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean that much.
You mentioned that. I'm sorry, but that's going to be a topic, I think, for the podcast. Several episodes down the road is between now and say New Year's Day or whenever LSU plays this bowl game is sort of. No, we're not going to get into it now, but just sort of the notion that the bowl season is not nearly as big as it used to be, and it's almost really it's not even so much postseason as it is pre-spring, if that makes any sense. The way the sort of college football postseason has sort of changed and evolved over the years. So anyway, that's a topic for another day. A more pressing topic, obviously, and we've been teasing to it for a good while now, is Jayden Daniels' Heisman campaign. 2 weeks ago, Bo Nix was the favorite. He was at -110, and Jayden Daniels was third at +425. Last week, Jayden Daniels had moved out in front. He was -120. Bo Nix was +150. And now, as of this podcast, Nix is -170. Jayden Daniels is +130. He is now, of course, in the clubhouse, so to speak. Nix and Michael Penix will get a chance to duke it out Friday night in the Pac-12 championship game in Las Vegas. I will put it very simply to you, Wilson. What needs to happen in that? There's nothing else that Jayden Daniels can do. What would be the best case scenario in terms of, we're not rooting for an injury or anything like that, but just in terms of how that Pac-12 championship game plays out for Jayden's chances, his best chances at winning the Heisman, what would happen? How would that play out?
It would need to, the best scenario for him would be for Oregon and Washington to turn into a defensive slugfest that's sloppy with a whole bunch of turnovers.
An Iowa football game?
Yeah, basically. And it's hard to see that happening based on the way they played each other the first time.
Right.
So one of those quarterbacks is probably going to have a chance for a Heisman moment. But the other thing would be if, the best case scenario would be, like I said, defensive slugfest that Washington wins.
Right.
And so then Bo Nix doesn't have that, a team that is would at that point be 12-1 Pac-12 champs going to the playoff, because it's going to be hard to overcome that, even with everything that Jayden has done statistically, which is incredibly impressive. I mean, get this: Jayden has thrown for he's accounted for 50 touchdowns, 4,946 yards. I went back and looked yesterday at all the Heisman winning quarterbacks since 2010, what they had done in 12 games, because that's Jayden's case. It's 12 games, a 12-game sample size. He has more yards than any of them in 12 games, and the only person who had scored more touchdowns at this point in the season was Lamar Jackson with 51.
It's incredible.
Like everybody else had gotten to their season totals by playing in a conference championship game, and then even a postseason bowl game and stuff. Like, you look at Joe Burrow's numbers in that 2019 season; those were 3 more games than what Jayden has right now.
Yep.
And he had 8 touchdowns against Oklahoma in the Peach Bowl.
Exactly. And so, what Jayden has done through 12 games measures up and then even exceeds quite a few of the most recent Heisman winners. But even with all of that, it's going to be hard to win it if Bo Nix has a fantastic Pac-12 championship game, signature moments left and right, and beats Oregon in a high-scoring game. That's going to be tough for Jayden to overcome. So the best case scenario would be for him to not play very well and for Oregon to lose.
I don't know. In watching the Heisman over the years, and it used to be a running back dominated award, and now, of course, it's a quarterback dominated award. Just to see the evolution of voter thinking, I don't know when it's become so much you have to have a team that's in national contention or something like that. And look, I probably wrote something like Joe Burrow was the best player on the best team 4 years ago. I probably wrote something like that, and he was, and they were. But
But he was also the best player in the nation.
But
anyway.
he was clearly having the best season. And Jayden Daniels, it's not his fault that they that they lost 3 games. I mean, you could maybe say, okay, he didn't play great in the second half of the Florida State game, and then he got hurt in the Alabama game, which wasn't his fault. I was just sitting here thinking, they throw the ball in the end zone with a chance to win at Ole Miss. I mean, if somehow he completes that pass to, was it Lacey
Chris
or Hilton? If which hit his hands, then they're in a New Year's Six bowl game. Ole Miss is out. Mm-hmm. They're 10-2 in a New Year's Six bowl game, and Jayden has a better argument in the Heisman race. I mean, that's
not only
that's
would they be probably superseding Ole Miss in that case, but they would have the head-to-head against Missouri.
Yeah.
So that would be even further strengthened.
They'd be in a New Year's Six bowl game. And take it a step further, if this was a year from now, the expanded playoff, LSU would be, for all their defensive problems, they're that close. They're going to be 13th or 14th in the college football rankings when they come out this week. So anyway, I digress, of course, but that's become such a qualifier for a lot of people that they're just going to. I think that is Jayden's biggest handicap. They're going to dismiss. A lot of voters are just going to dismiss him because his team's not there, unless Bo Nix throws in a clunker as he did, as he used to do at Auburn, and they especially if they lose to Washington, then they lost twice, and that elevates Penix a little bit. But I think Penix is a distant third right now. Now Jayden's got some people on his side. I mean, Kirk Herbstreit basically said he should be the guy. I saw Dan Mullen say on the College Football Final the other night that he thought he was the best candidate, and those are just a couple of examples. So but he's like the thinking man's vote, and I'm sorry to say, as a Heisman elector, that's not how everybody approaches this. There's some people who are just going to be like, he didn't have as good a season, I'm not going to vote for him.
And you can twist stats in a lot of different ways to paint a picture of what you want them to.
Absolutely.
But there are so many overwhelming in Jayden's favor when you look at him versus Nix versus Penix that it's a surprise that maybe. Well, it's not a surprise, but it just goes to show he has such a strong argument for this. I mean, 881 more total yards than Bo Nix at this point. He has thrown for fewer passing yards. He's got 3,800 something, and Nix leads the country with 3,900 something. I can't remember the exact number.
1,000, you would think.
But Jayden's done it on 74 less attempts than Nix. So it's and he's been throwing the ball downfield more, and then he's got everything that he does as a runner too. Statistically, the argument is incredibly strong. It's just like what Rab's saying. Some people don't look into that, and unfortunately, none of us can all watch every single game.
I will say one thing, if I may, about the way the Heisman voting is set up. There's 6 different regions of the country with 145 media voters in each one, plus the former winners like Joe Burrow and Danny Werfel and people like that get to vote. And the fact that the other 2 top contenders, and Marvin Harrison's a distant fourth at this point. He'll probably get invited to New York, but he's not going to win. The fact that the top 2 contenders come from the far west does play to Jayden's advantage, because they're going to split the vote. You vote first, second, and third on your ballot, and a lot of those people out west are probably going to have Nix or Penix one or two in some order, and then Jayden third, or leave him off. And people will leave him off the ballot. Some people left Joe Burrow off the ballot in 2019, believe it or not.
Yep.
About 4% of the voters left him off the ballot. So the fact that if Jayden can do better, you figure Jayden would win this region, the South, and maybe some other ones. That could play to his advantage a little bit, but it seems skewed towards Bo Nix at this point until they play on Saturday. And while we say Jayden doesn't have a chance to state his case this week, he doesn't have a chance to blow it either.
That's right.
And that's an important consideration.
I had thought, frankly, all this time that no matter who was, no matter how everything played out, that probably the winner of the Pac-12 championship game was going to have a leg up, no matter whether it was Penix or Nix. Penix has fallen back to plus 1,800 at Caesars, which is a significant gap to try to make up. All that having been said, if the guy goes out there and throws for 6 touchdown passes, well, maybe it's game on yet again between.
He'd have
Penix.
to do something really spectacular.
But it's going to be there for him. He'll have a shot. I'm not saying he's going to. I'm not saying he will, or that it's likely even. But he will at least have a shot. But yes, going back to your original point, Wilson, it seems to me that if it's a 24-21 game and Nix does not tear it up, and Penix wins, but Penix only throws for 220 yards and 2 touchdowns, only 222 yards and 2 touchdowns or something like that. That it would seem to be advantage Jayden Daniels, but we're going to have to find that out. We'll set that aside here for a moment, because we are going to have another week plus to talk about that, and we will discuss 2 players who are in the clubhouse for another award, and that's the Biletnikoff. We've discussed this for several weeks now, but look, Malik Nabers, objectively speaking, he has made the best case out of the 2 front runners, himself and Marvin Harrison Jr. from Ohio State. Nabers has 1,546 receiving yards, 14 touchdowns. Harrison has 1,211 yards, 14 touchdowns. Certainly, Nabers had another fine game against Texas A&M. Like the rest of the team, he started slowly, but then came on. Certainly in the third and fourth quarter, specifically the fourth quarter. He needs 22 yards. Well, we'll get to that in a moment. Him trying to break Josh Reed's career record, 3,001 yards. But because this has, the 2 leaders are in the clubhouse now, do we feel, Wilson, that Malik Nabers has done enough to overtake Marvin Harrison for the Biletnikoff?
He's done enough on the field. I mean, I don't think there's anything else he could have done if he doesn't win it.
Has he done enough for the voters?
I mean, yes, he's done enough, but are the voters going to recognize that and see that? Maybe not. It's one of those things where it might be a situation where it's like a career achievement award for Marvin Harrison, in which he's had a fantastic career. He's a really good player.
Yeah.
But it kind of be like 2019. Grant Delpit probably shouldn't have won the Thorpe Award in 19. He probably should have won it in 18. But it was kind of like a career achievement thing, and so in that way, maybe the way people think about it in that regard may giveth and taketh in this situation where, Nabers doesn't win it because of what Harrison has accomplished over a career and the name recognition that he has built up in particular over the last couple seasons.
Maybe I'm imprinting my thought process on this, because I vote on the Heisman, I vote on the Biletnikoff, and it seems to me like for these individual position awards, people are a little more prone to maybe giving someone
looking at the hard evidence.
Giving a career achievement award. Just saying, I think he's the best player, and I think there's a lot of voters too who get caught up in, well, he's going to be the top wide receiver drafted, and stuff like that. Well, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter for this award, and he probably will be, and deservedly so. And he's a great player and all that stuff. But the plain in simple numbers, the fact that Malik Nabers has such a fantastic season and Brian Thomas had a fantastic season. He's not the only receiver that Jayden Daniels was throwing to all year.
Yep.
They had how many games where you had three guys go over 100 yards?
It was just the one, but
Okay,
you know,
all right, but
certainly
but
two.
they were all three capable. They had three guys capable of 100 yards games. Brian Thomas led the nation in touchdown receptions.
I believe Malik and Brian both had 5 games where they both went over 100 yards.
Yeah, so you know, and people were bracket. You know, I said it before on our podcast. It's like Michael Thomas in his prime. You know they're going to throw to him, and still he gets open.
Right.
And that it's just been astounding. You know how well he's played all year long. So I'm not supposed to share my Heisman vote. The Bulletnikov people don't give you too much grief about that. I voted for Malik first, Rome Odunze from Washington second, and Marvin Harrison third. Marvin Harrison played very well against Michigan in a losing effort, but he had a good game Saturday, and so that'll probably help him. I think Marvin Harrison is going to win, but I think Malik has made people think about this more than they otherwise would have.
Malik needed 144 yards against Texas A&M to break Josh Reed's career record of 3,001 yards. He winds up with 122, and he could, as we all know, he could have very easily gotten over 144 had and I'm not saying this was the wrong call, but had an official decided to keep the flag in his pocket on a block on an illegal block by Kyron Lacey, Malik Nabers would have gone over. He said post game, Wilson, you were right there for this. You were right there to witness it. He said post game that no, this record means a lot, and you know God has chosen, basically in so many words, God has chosen me to be in this position to be able to break that record, and that's something I take seriously, and so on and so on and so forth. He said basically that he would like to be in a position to be able to break that record, i.e., he would like to play in that bowl game for the chance of playing that bowl game and break that record. Do you think that's going to hold? When all is said and done, should we expect Malik Nabers to play in this bowl game, this to be announced bowl game, so he can break the record?
I mean, it's hard to say for certainly one way or another, but let's go based on what he has said, which is that he wants to play in it. And this was said in a very emotional kind of moment.
Yep.
Right after the game when he really badly wanted to break it there, had a chance to if Kyron Lacey doesn't get called for holding on that what would have been like a 75-yard touchdown, I think. And so, yes, there was maybe in the cold light of day, as it were, and a few days later, and once people start getting in his ear about the draft, maybe he'll reconsider. But this is also somebody who, you know, said it himself post game there. It's like, I've always given my teammates everything that I have. And like, he wants to continue to do that. And I could even see a situation where he plays and he gets 22 yards and they say, okay, and don't need to do anything else. But you know, he was really, really adamant about it. He was then asked again, sort of clarify later in the press conference, are you playing in the bowl game? And then he sort of walked it back a little bit, saying already
qualified it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. But he was really feeling it at that moment that he wanted to play in the bowl game because he wants that record. And so he very well might. And while I wouldn't knock him for maybe going back on that and deciding that he actually doesn't want to play in it, so far he has said that he does.
Football is such a brutal game, and you can understand anyone wanting to protect. You have one shot at this brass ring, you know, of an NFL career, and you want to be at your best physically going into the draft and going forward in your career. But boy, you know, you certainly would like to think so. It's not a small thing at a school like LSU to break a record like this. You know, receivers that you've had like Josh Reed and Wendell Davis and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson.
Dwayne Bowe.
Dwayne Bowe. I mean, it's not WRU, but there've been a lot. There've been a lot of great receivers here over the years. I was telling him the other day about what a great receiver Wendell Davis was back in the 80s, catching passes from Tommy Hodson. And, you know, and of course, Josh Reed, I covered him, that phenomenal year he had in 2001 when he won the Bulletnikov and had all those great games. So it would not be nothing to have that. I think, I'll put it this way. I think Malik Nabers would regret not playing in the bowl game years from now. You know, but he's got a decision to make between now and then, and we'll see what he does. But I'd like to think he will play. But You can't be sure for what Wilson said.
Similar to Daniels, though, I would say that if he were to come out 5 days from now or 15 days from now and say, "Hey guys, look, after careful consideration, I've decided I'm going to take my talents to the NFL." Again, I don't know that I tend to think that most of the LSU fan base, yes, they'd like to see him break the record, but they would also say, "Hey, Malik, salute. We appreciate everything you've done. You've had a hell of a career. God bless and Godspeed," and so on and so forth.
Let me say one thing that I'm thinking of while we're talking about this, about Jayden's decision whether to play in a bowl game or not. I hope there's somebody in his ear telling him not to announce any decision if he's thinking about not playing until after the Heisman voting closes next Monday. Because I think that's, again, something Heisman voters would hold against him. It's in his interest and LSU's best interest for him not to say until afterward.
We will have 7 more days to figure out whether that's going to happen or not. We will, before we wrap it up, we'll do a quick hit on Rab, if you would, a quick hit on Angel Reese and the LSU women's basketball team. They got back from 2 wins in the Cayman Islands over the last weekend. Angel presumably still suspended. We don't know for sure that she was suspended, but that's what we all are sort of presuming. And they play Virginia Tech, their Final Four combatant from last spring. They play Virginia Tech on Thursday. What do we know about Angel Reese? What do you suspect will happen over the next, say, 5 to 7 days with her?
Yeah, so they obviously she hadn't played since the first half of the game against Kent State. She didn't play against Texas Southern. She did not go with the team to the Cayman Islands, where they beat Niagara and Virginia. And there's been no further word other than Kim Mulkey saying, she's going to be back. She's going to be back sooner than later. And and Angel, I don't follow her every move she makes on social media, but apparently she's been tweeting stuff about the team and their winning and stuff like that. And obviously they did well. They won all the game without her. And as I wrote, I think maybe she's going to come to the realization that they need her. So she needs them. And then you see a player like Anissa Morrow go off. As she
37 points against Virginia, and that was a nice
16
win.
rebounds as well. Yeah, very, very impressive performance for the transfer from DePaul. So I think a lot of us who cover LSU women's basketball have thought all along that we might see her back for the Virginia Tech game. This is their biggest test by far since the game they lost to Colorado to open the season. And I think we'll see her out there. But there's a lot that goes into it, the chemistry of the team and how they succeeded without her. And it's going to be interesting what kind of teammate she is going forward, assuming she comes back. Now, there's another player, Kateri Poole, who may not come back. We're going to find out more about her this week, but I think Angel will be back and right soon.
This is an educated guess, and that's all it is. But do you suspect that she'll be back before Virginia Tech?
Just like practicing with the team, or
back when the ball goes up for the tip, Thursday against Virginia Tech. Will she be on the floor?
Well, will she be on the floor? Might make her come off the bench. I might make her come. Of course, LSU is also probably going to move that Samaya Smith, who injured her knee in the Caymans against Niagara. So it's a real shame. She was really improving in her second year. So if I have to pick, yes, she'll be out there for the tip against Virginia Tech.
We will find out in 3 days, in 3 days' time. And in the meantime, obviously, LSU men and LSU women's basketball is starting to ramp up here. But in the meantime, we also have plenty of discussions to come about LSU football, about the coaching staff changes, if there are any, about recruiting to come, if there is a need to fill certain spots in recruiting. And then, of course, the bowl game coming up in addition to Jayden Daniels' Heisman campaign. So we will leave it there. We will be back here on Thursday. We are here every Monday and Thursday on our YouTube channel, specifically the LSU Tigers at NOLA.com YouTube channel. So subscribe to that channel if you would. You can catch us live there, or you can catch us after the fact. We are also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever other finer podcasts are found. And in the meantime, please subscribe to The Advocate if you have not already. To do that, you go to theadvocate.com/subscribe. That's theadvocate.com/subscribe. And also stay up to date with everything LSU football, women's basketball, men's basketball, baseball, gymnastics, everything under the sun. To do that, you can get a hold of our LSU newsletter, and that is at theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter. We are brought to you today and every day by Champion Wealth Strategies. For more information, please go to championwealthstrategies.com and plan like a champion today. And also, finally, it's gift giving season, it's holiday season, and so for the LSU fan in your life, by all means, these are our championship posters, the Advocate front page posters. They're iconic. They've been around for years and years and years, going back to 1991 with the LSU baseball team, and every championship since then. And there have certainly been many championships as of late from the LSU campus to celebrate and for us to have commemorated with the front page of our sports section. So to get that gift for the LSU fan in your life, go to store.theadvocate.com. Again, that's store.theadvocate.com. And if you use the coupon code Insider, you get 15% off your purchase. And so by all means, do that while you still can before the holiday calendar runs out. We will be again back here on Thursday, and so in the meantime, we certainly wish you all a happy championship bowl week, a championship football week. For Wilson Alexander and for Scott Rabalais and for Amelia Cotton behind the glass, my name is Perryn Keys. This has been the LSU Sports Insider.